In this episode of the Orange Nerd Show, we're going to talk about all the corporate politics. We're going to dive into Bob Chapek, Tom Staggs, Peter Rice. We're talking about all of it up next. Welcome to another episode of the Orange Nerd Show. We brought the fantastic panel. We have Mr. VashSky, host of Freshly Squeezed, and AliaaAloha is back on the channel to talk some Chapek. How you guys doing today, guys and gals?
Well, thank you.
It's a pleasure having you both. It's a pleasure having you both on again. We're going to dive into the topics at hand. Before we do that, Alia, I will start with you. If you can let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Twitter at AliaaAloha. Yeah, I'm getting it.
Pay attention, it's Joe time.
There you go.
There you go. AliaaAloha, right there. Right there.
There's that sound effect.
There you go.
Then we have Mr. VashSky, producer Dre, host of Freshly Squeezed. Dre, how you doing today, sir?
I'm doing very, very well. You know, when the call went out, Alia's coming on, I'm like, oh, I got to be on that show. You know, it's always with the great insight, always with it's just a different radical take that we even you know you or I were talking about. So
yeah.
So I definitely got to be part of the show. So I'm really excited to start it. And hey, if you want to interact with me, it's going to be at VashSky right down there, just like it's spelled. And if you want to see me, well, it's going to be on the channel you're watching right now, OrangeGrove55 at Freshly Squeezed, your source for a juicy news and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
That's the one. There you go.
You know, it's funny. It's funny when you play that clip, Dre. I know it's Adam the Woo. Like I know it's Adam the Woo, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like DeSantis.
Oh, maybe I have one. Maybe I have one right here. Let's see. Let's compare.
He's really not in command. I mean, you know, let's just be honest. He's probably about 6 fries short of a Happy Meal at this stage of his life.
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of like him. Isn't that interesting?
It's there.
Never
It's
really
there.
thought
Yeah.
about it.
Hey, look, Adam the Woo. If you're watching, no disrespect. Every time he plays it, I just think DeSantis. I don't know. I just the voices are kind of similar, you know.
You know, DeSantis was on Adam the Woo's show at one point when they were opening up the what is it? The I can't remember. Like the big old grand gas station that's like the Disneyland of gas stations. You know what I'm talking about? The it's like a back east. It's like a back east kind of place. Buc-ee's.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's a quick trip. You know, that seems.
So DeSantis attended the opening, the first one in Florida, and Adam the Woo was there, caught him on the vlog. So they have that kind of connection. It's really interesting you say that.
You know, it's fascinating. It's fascinating. So let's dive into this topic today. We're gonna talk about everything because, like, Alia, I love bringing you on with this stuff because you always bring a really interesting take in regards to like the corporate end of the company, like with
pressure.
With Chapek, you know, Susan Arnold, the board, and all this stuff. So let's dive in. Okay, so we haven't had you on the show for a while, so I want to I'll start with you, Alia. Like, where are you at in terms of Bob Chapek? Like, is he on the ropes? Is he on his way out? Where do you what's your measuring stick right now in regards to Bob Chapek and where he stands with the Walt Disney Company?
Let's see. So I think if he was on a level of warnings or anything like that, you know how things can happen on a job. Maybe he's at a verbal warning level because I don't think it's quite written or anything like that because Wall Street seems happy with him thus far. I think that's his savings grace, so to speak. But he'll need to kind of turn things around or get things moving in a very positive way in the next few months because his contract negotiations will start soon. Because as Matt Baloney has pointed out, that although it is February of next year, these negotiations take time. Also, if he's interested in renewing and continuing, that's also another question. He might not be interested. So
yeah, and Alia, that's a great point. Like you said, Matt Baloney was talking about how even though he's up for renewal in February of next year, those contract negotiations begin very soon, which is I never knew that. Like I'm not too knowledgeable with that the inner workings. I mean, it's only April of 2022 and his contract, is up in February of 2023, and already those negotiations would start. That's fascinating. And that's actually kind of interesting timing because of all the drama happening right now, like with everything going on with the Florida bill and all of that. That's not really good for Mr. Chapek in a lot of ways, because the shit kind of hit the fan like at kind of the worst time for him when he's like just approaching those renegotiations, right? Not a good time. Not good time.
No, not a good timing.
No,
not a good timing. I think he has, because the contract negotiations will start in a few months. He has those few months to really start to show things turning around. I think the stock needs to stay stable or increase. Not many down days, and then also more promising news has to happen. I know that the community and Dis Twitter, as it's called, and all that, they want more sociability, more, as you also mentioned, the social intelligence and all that. But I don't think that's a deal breaker or a sticking point for Wall Street. And, unfortunately, in many ways, to everyone who watches shows like this in the community, that's what they say pretty much goes, especially for Arnold and the board. So
absolutely,
he has thrown his allegiance to the Wall Street guys. Like that's
and they love that,
and they do, and he appeals to them in a variety of ways, and it's honestly it's a smart play, right? Especially for a numbers oriented guy like Chapek. Not many people will understand the way he operates, the way he kind of, skins the cat or whatever you want to say, right? Not a lot of people are going to understand that, but Wall Street will, And if you're working on this kind of the monetary theory that Wall Street puts out there, hey, they get it, they understand, and that's not going to make you popular with a lot of the creatives, a lot of the people who kind of work on a different, maybe emotional level. But when it comes to Chapek and job security, hey, look, as long as the stock price is high, as long as I'm throwing a bone to Wall Street, whether it be opening in new markets with Disney Plus or bringing new products out, hey, they're going to be on board with what I'm doing. So hey, it's why he's still around. It's why he's still around.
No, 100%. And like a lot of people will talk about the stock price, right? And like it's kind of like right now it's kind of deceiving because we look at the stock price, which I think is like hovering around like 135, 140 right now. And while that is dramatically down from the highs of like a few months ago or whatever, when things were starting to open back up again, it was like, I think Disney was like it was like nipping at like $200 a share. But if you really compare like longer term, like the past like 2+ years, 130, 140 is pretty much where Disney was at when Bob Iger was leaving the company in early 2020. I mean, that's pretty much December, January. That's pretty much where the stock price was. And then obviously, like when the pandy hit full blown, it tanked like crazy because all the parks were closed, theaters were closed. It went down to like $80 a share. And then a little bit after that, when it reopened, it shot up like overcorrected. I think Dre, you mentioned that it like overcorrected. Yeah. It was overvalued. It was like 180, 190, $200 a share. Right. And then it's kind of come back down to earth again. So if you look at the stock price today and you look at the stock price when Iger was just leaving right before the pandemic, it's pretty much right at the same level. So there was a lot of volatility, with the pandy and the closing and the reopening, but really it's kind of come back down to earth. And I'm sure Susan Arnold and the board is looking at that and going, okay, well, yeah, it's down from like the extreme high, but it's not down from like when Iger was running the show, So is it really enough to fire Chapek? Probably not,
And also I've been, for shits and giggles, as they say, looking at the Comcast stock too, and they both, about the same, when one's down, the other one's down. It's about the same percentage. So, I think Wall Street Arnold and the board looks at that too, and they're thinking, okay.
Well, you also have that kind of lockdown bump, right? That we saw from a lot of technology companies who were offering kind of products and services via the customers, and kind of this this kind of beholden to audience, or this captured audience, so to speak, right? We saw Peloton, how it kind of went up during those days, and then they couldn't actually transform that into long-term success, unfortunately. But Disney, went through those same waves, but they have so many different, products that they offer. The parks division, the cruise line, the film slate that they can actually roll out and theatrical and stuff like that. And it's kind of come down to those levels, but they're in a much better financial position because of those things, right? So it's kind of it's going to go up and down as things kind of normalize out and regulate out as we kind of get out of those kind of lockdown days. And what I find fascinating though is, we've seen Disney Plus make some huge gains in terms of subscriber growth. I'm surprised that the stock doesn't take that quite into account as much as maybe we had thought. I would have thought it would be regulated out maybe like 160, 150, but it's even dipped down below that. So I don't know. It's kind of interesting what Wall Street values and so forth, and how those trades are looking. But hey, look, I mean, I think they're on a path to success here if they can kind of turn the kind of studio division around and really debut some product that people really like.
Yeah, well, I definitely do think that the volatility. I think the PR stuff is definitely affecting the stock price. Like you mentioned, the gains that Disney Plus had or is having, and the success in that arena. Why isn't it like 150, 160? It probably would be if not for the drama surrounding Bob Chapek. I think that is definitely offsetting some of this success quite a bit.
So if Arnold and the board agrees with you on that, then yeah, he could be in trouble. So.
Yeah, I do think that factors into it, because there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Like even like in the theme park. I know we don't talk about theme parks here on OrangeNerd, but like with the theme parks in like Reedy Creek and things like that with DeSantis, that those are big issues for Disney, and I think that's definitely kind of keeping the stock price lower than probably it would be if that stuff didn't exist, Yeah,
I'm surprised actually. The Reedy Creek stuff really got to a fever pitch, but the stock price wasn't as affected nearly as much as I might have thought it would because of the implications of that kind of deal. So obviously, maybe Wall Street doesn't consider it in jeopardy, so to speak, to the extent to which maybe other fans maybe do. Also, too, we haven't heard many statements regarding the issues in Florida since the legislatures in Florida kind of brought that to light, so to speak. So, it kind of got to a fever pitch, but now people are quiet on both ends. I think we were talking before the show how they might be talking behind the scenes to get that whole thing kind of sorted out in an amicable way. So maybe also Wall Street is keying in on that and saying, I don't think anything is going to really happen on that front. So it's really, really fascinating how they're projecting the future of the company at this point.
Yeah. Now, Alia, I know you don't follow the parks too much, but you've been following the Reedy Creek stuff or a little bit, or
yeah.
What are your thoughts on that? I'm curious. Like, where are you at in regards to that whole situation? Because that's a fascinating topic to dive into.
So you're curious about if I feel that anything, if it'll be taken from them or anything like that.
Yeah, like where are you at? Like, do you feel like there's real jeopardy in regards to the DeSantis taking those special privileges, as he calls them, away? Do you feel like there's no chance? Do you feel like Dre mentioned where it's kind of like things seem to be calming down? Like, kind of where are you at currently with it?
As of this moment, because who knows what's breaking right now in the news.
Who knows? We could be recording the show right now and some headline comes out somewhere. He does a press conference somewhere and it's like, oh,
one
God.
way or the other.
Yeah, right.
But as of this moment, I think things are calming down. I do think things are calming down. And I don't know if it's because Disney's just decided to become silent and just silent period. It just, okay, we'll just be quiet now. Or if, yes, the silence is because they're working things out with the Florida government. And, part of the reason why I think they're silent is they're noticing Comcast is silent and pretty much getting away with that. And if I am still seeing tweets of Disney employees, creative employees, like, why aren't you speaking out, Disney? Why aren't you speaking out? And I'm like, well, because they notice Comcast is silent. So if you want Disney to do more, then convince your Comcast allies to speak up and pressure Comcast, because otherwise I don't think anything's going to change. Putting on my business hat, I really don't blame Disney now for being silent, because they're noticing Comcast having a great time being silent. So,
I think that's where Chapek wanted to go. I think Chapek was looking like, hey, look, let's listen. Let's not make a statement that can be used and weaponized against us. Of course, he obviously changed his tune, but it doesn't take a rocket scientist. Hey, if we're making statements and getting killed for it, whether it be on this side of the press or that side of the press, or these activists or those activists. And you have Comcast looking over there, and they're just being mum about it and not facing any of this criticism or heat. It's like, you know what? I think we're going to do that. It doesn't take a rocket scientist, and that's why historically these companies never made statements.
I kind of didn't blame him or understood. He was scared to death of what's going to happen with the creatives, especially top creatives. Mm-hmm. And then also, though, too, he didn't know then if it become I think there was a part of him that thought, too, okay, Comcast employees are going to start speaking up, and then Comcast is going to join in this clusterfuck with us, too, and, these other companies.
And it didn't happen, right? It didn't
happen. And then he's like, thinking, okay, so, is it a great backbone and great, standing for what you believe in? No. But like I said, business hat on, I do understand.
And I'm gonna, what?
If they want more to happen, they need to convince their friends at Comcast to start speaking up at the different studios. So,
and I'm gonna blame Iger again on this, because Iger kind of started him down the line where we're gonna take a stance and we're gonna get, we're gonna get into this kind of culture war, so to speak, or whatever you want to call it, right? And that has really kind of people are going to take that the wrong way, whereas Comcast really didn't put itself in that position, and now it can kind of coast on that and kind of go, hey, you know what? Nobody's looking for us to make a statement because we haven't made statements before, and it's it's the tangled web we weave.
100%. There is so much. Wow, there's so much going on with this. Yeah, like it's amazing to me, like. The pressure on Disney to sort of like make a statement, denounce the bill, yada, right? Yeah, it was fierce, and it was coming from like the various studios, and there was like a mutiny against Bob Chapek in regard to this. Comcast, who donated more, I mean that's a fact, donated more to these same politicians. Not a word. No one seemed to care. No one cares. It doesn't matter. They can do whatever they want, but Disney, you got to hold them to the fire. And I think there is a level of like, hey, look, you know what? And just being honest, I mean, I do think Disney has more cultural relevance. Mm-hmm. While Comcast donated more money, they technically have more clout in the situation. I do think that Disney is a more relevant company. There's a lot of talk about, Comcast is coming up and their parks and this and that. And that's true. But at the end of the day, Disney is still king of the hill. And that's why a lot of people gun for Disney. That's why people look, it started under Bob Iger when he started buying up Lucasfilm and started buying up Marvel and started buying up Fox. Disney became the target. When you're king of the hill, you are the target. And that's really why the energy is focused on that. But I think from an activism point of view, if you're really looking to make change in that social sphere,
pressure everybody.
You got to pressure everybody, because you're going to let Comcast get away with that. Like why? Like they donated money too. They're the second largest theme park operator in Florida. They're a huge telecom company. They're not like a mom and pop organization. This company has massive influence, massive power. They're a massive studio, and you're going to let them coast?
Glad saying studios, parent companies, we're going to hold your feet to the fire. Look at this example of Disney. You're not, but okay, you need to pressure Comcast, Universal now. And also, aren't they concerned? Comcast employees are silent. Are they being threatened to be silent? It's just
where's all that? Yeah, she talks a big game. The Glad CEO. Oh, you better You better get on board or else we'll destroy you too.
Learn your
I don't
lessons
see you
from
doing
what
it
happened
anywhere
to
else.
Disney. Yeah.
Exactly. It's fascinating, and I think a number of different corporations who have financial ties to Florida, donating to politicians across the board. Don't hear anything from them. Isn't that quite
AT&T, which is technically Warner Brothers up to a certain point, then it's going to be Discovery. But at that time, that was Warner Brothers, AT&T, and so
yeah, where you at?
There's this Disney. It's crazy because Disney is held to such a standard.
Yeah,
it's just unlike anything else. I mean, Bob Chapek could sneeze the wrong direction, and it's front page news on Variety, Hollywood Reporter, Deadline. They're all reporting
especially
on
those three. Yeah.
Well, yeah, right. The Hollywood, yeah, exactly. It's all the same outlets all the time. But look, you're number one at the box office, right? You specialize in children's entertainment. You're the number one employer in Florida. You do have influence and stuff like that, and you're in the cultural zeitgeist. And so people put you on a different pedestal than maybe they do Comcast, and we kind of know how that dynamic works. But it's just like, wait a minute, if the bill was funded or supported by these corporations, shouldn't we hold them all accountable? It's kind of an interesting thing, and that kind of dealing with children's entertainment, it's a really fascinating thing. Maybe Chapek's overcorrection got him in hot waters with the government there in Tallahassee, and that's kind of what kind of started this whole thing. So you really got to be careful. You really do.
You do, and there's an old saying where it's kind of like when they stop talking about you, that's when you should worry. Like the fact that all the trades, the media is a buzz about the Disney reaction, kind of shows and kind of points to the relevance, right? Like when they stop doing that, okay, well, then you're a has-been. Then you're yesterday's news. No one cares anymore,
Yeah, I don't think.
I think Chapek wishes they would chill just a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Not to be has-been news for just a few months, please.
Can we not dominate headlines for a week? Is this possible, right? Whereas, no, to your point, OG, 70s Disney, they don't have to worry about it because they were number 12 at the box office out of 12. They were. They were.
When Ron Miller was CEO, right?
Right.
His son-in-law.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, when you stop making those headlines, that's when you become. And also, I do think there is something to be said about, and this is kind of like, hey, look, it maybe a little conspiratorial, maybe a little cynical, but I do think there is this kind of thing in media where it's like what they'd like to do, and they do this with companies, and they do this with even individuals like celebrities, where, okay, we're going to build this person up. They kind of did this with Britney Spears, to be honest with you. Built her up. She's amazing. They built her up, superstar, right? And then when she started having her personal problems in 2006, the media was right there to tear her down, right? Because at that point then, Britney Spears was the top of the top in the industry. And it was major clicks, major views to tear that person down. As gross as it is, that's the industry, right? Same thing. And you saw it with Pixar when they were going through their streak of every movie beat the last movie and kind of thing. You saw in the media all the time about when's the next Pixar flop? Is Ratatouille going to be the flop? Is this going to be the flop? Right? They were gleeful. They wanted it to happen. And I think that's kind of really what's happening here with Disney. They're top of the game. They got Marvel, Star Wars, Lucasfilm, the huge Disney library, Fox. Disney Plus is wildly successful. It's been built up. And now the media has to tear that down because now you have this big super thing. And now there's more views, more clicks in the teardown. And they really want to do. I do think that is an aspect of this whole equation, in my opinion. I do think that they really do look for okay, that's the story. Look, if you report on Hanna-Barbera and the collapse of Hanna-Barbera, no one's going to give a shit. Okay, no one cares about Hanna-Barbera anymore.
Yeah,
you report on the.
No offense to any Hanna-Barbera fans watching.
Yeah, I know, right?
No
offense. Oh, yeah, I love that film growing up. You bastard. Yeah, exactly. We're gonna get the emails.
But no one cares anymore, right? But Disney, you're Hollywood Reporter, you're Variety, and you can report that the Disney empire is collapsing. Ooh.
Yeah,
that's big. That's big clicks, baby.
Irony though is if that happened, they'd be panicking. So it's
yeah,
careful what you But Disney's been through ups and downs before. They'll be fine.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we see that effect with Marvel. You know, a lot of trades and industry moguls and stuff like that. They would love for the Marvel films not to be the juggernauts that they are, and we've seen creators in that space kind of criticize the Marvel films and their success. And hey,
But then their friend joins Marvel, so that it's kind of awkward for them.
Yeah. Then it's kind of awkward. It's like, well, what?
Oscar Isaac, like, I'll go Marvel, and then Chloe, I'll do Marvel. So it's just then their friends were like, oh, okay.
Yeah, Joe down the street there is a grip for one of the Marvel films. I don't want to do super bad, right?
Yeah, no, it's wild. So there's a lot of factors involved here, but like you said, Alia, with GLAAD kind of like saying, hey, we're going to hold these other studios' feet to the fire. We're waiting. And don't get too comfortable, basically, right? We'll see if that actually happens. I don't know if it's going to hit like it does when it comes to Disney. It's a perfect storm for Disney. I don't know. We'll see.
At least you would see, Illumination or DreamWorks staff saying or doing something, and they should do everything that what the Disney employees tried, walkouts, everything. True, it might not be the clickbait for just laypersons looking at articles and stuff, but at least behind the scenes, why isn't that happening? Or just
conceivably, they have LGBTQ plus employees too that are going to be affected by this, right?
The activist generation, as it's known, that are creative employees, and
sure,
I don't think they're all at Disney. I think they're at the other studios too. So.
I would think so, and yet you don't hear much. It's just quite fascinating. It's it's interesting. It's fascinating.
Well, I know, and this is the stuff. It's like. Why? Like we brought it up before on the show. Is there some sort of like internal mole that's sort of feeding this stuff? Like we've speculated, I mean, there's been speculation even in the trades that like Bob Iger is
behind this.
Yep. Behind it, kind of throwing Chapek under the bus, stuff like that. Is it maybe not Iger, but maybe his loyalists within the company trying to do this, or is it someone totally different? Maybe like a Kevin Feige, who's not happy or something. It just seems odd to me. It does seem there might be an internal element to it. And again, this is a theory, so I'm not trying to like accuse anybody. I'm just saying it's a possibility. It's there. It's a possibility.
I think it's Iger, but that's just me.
Same here.
Oh, so Alia, you think it's Iger too?
Well, I mean,
we have a kinship here.
I'm not in the island anymore. Last quarter was really good, and then I don't know. I think that really bothered Iger that Chapek had a really good quarter the last time.
And look, Alia,
things were soaring, looking good, and then just
it's the same trades who Iger has had affiliations with before.
Yeah. Well, and think about it, Alia, it's.
I mean, Baloney, even between the lines, pretty much has said this. What's Iger doing? What's going on? And then that the Wall Street guy with Puck too, who had the article, just Iger's really involved. So Chapek needs to just ignore him. Arnold, the board, ignore him. Don't take any bait. Just ignore. So
well, and Iger mentioned, and I know Ollie, you follow this stuff very closely, and Dre as well. Like he mentioned in interviews before that one of the reasons why he retired was because he felt like he was becoming very intolerant to other opinions, right? Like it was kind of affecting his. Like he didn't want to have it get worse. He wanted to kind of nip it in the bud. And so, look, that mentality of like, oh, it's my way or the highway doesn't like just end when you retire. Like
reflection must continue. Issue.
Yeah, he still has that. So I'm sure now that he has no power at all, he's sitting there watching his TV and he's looking on the internet, and Chapek is making decisions that he doesn't approve of completely. It's got to bug him. So, it's possible he makes a call. Hey, Hollywood Reporter, run this story, run this, run that, and that's his way of sort of affecting change, right?
Sure. I'll do this interview with Jon Stewart.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting.
So again, we're not trying to like make any kind of like declarations like we know it's Bob Iger. No, we don't know.
We suspect.
But it does seem a little bit
suspect.
like even the trades have reported it does seem a little bit suspect, you know?
Well, yeah, and that kind of does provide maybe an explanation about why is Comcast getting out so unscathed, relatively unscathed, because, you know, maybe that same influence isn't affecting them in the same way that Disney, you know, is kind of thing. Because I got to think, like, Iger, Chapek is so antithetical to his core belief structure, right?
Right.
And I think for Iger, man, I just can't, that's got to be like a thing to have Chapek kind of be this data-driven guy, to be this kind of corporatist guy, and to have him be so successful, relatively successful in the role, especially given the events of 2020 and beyond. I mean, that's gotta eat at you a little bit, right?
But that's why I'm like, Iger, why did you choose him? And number one, and number two, when you were chairman, why didn't you go forth with action to remove him? It's just
so rational.
I guess ego.
You bring up the perfect point, and I've been saying this in video after video after video. Mm-hmm. Under Bob Iger, Bob Chapek was promoted like 3 times. He was the video distribution guy under Michael Eisner. He got promoted to the consumer products, I believe, under Bob Iger. From consumer products, he got promoted again under Bob Iger to run the theme parks, and then he got promoted again under Bob Iger.
Like
the consumer products and
okay,
right,
and then
he got promoted again to theme parks, and then he got promoted again to CEO. And we heard from the trades that Bob Iger, this was his hand-picked successor, was Bob Chapek. So it's like, okay, you promoted him multiple times. You chose him to be your CEO. So look, he's a different man. Like, let him do his job or come back. One or the other. Like, either promote the guy that you wanted in there and leave him alone, or vote to or put pressure to vote him out and come back. But you can't have it both ways. You can't say this is the guy and then sit there and try to like sabotage him from the timeline.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
You know, it's dirty. It's dirty. It's just, if you don't agree with the guy, you don't like what he's doing, then hey, look, it's not like Bob Iger has zero influence. He can get Susan Arnold on the phone. I'm sure he's got her in his cell phone even, you know. You can make moves to get a vote and get him out of there if you wanted him out. Do that then. But like, either do that or let the guy run the company. You just, I don't know, sabotaging and kind of from the outside, it got a little dirty to me, in my opinion.
It absolutely is, but you know,
I have a doorbell, so I'm going to step away. Sorry.
Oh,
Go ahead,
okay,
go
yeah,
ahead.
Sure. You can even stop cam if you want to. But
Yeah.
There you go. There. Okay. Good. Okay. That way she's all right then. But no, I was just gonna. I will save my question I was going to actually ask Alia, but no, you're exactly right, right? You put him in this position, you set him on a course to, I don't know, like the way that whole transition, you know, went off. We've talked about it on the show multiple times, but it's just like, it was just the weirdest thing, very rushed. And then like, you know, it's like, oh, well, I got to step back into the role because I don't think the CEO can handle it. And honestly, not the worst idea in the world, but then you don't tell him. You have Chapek fight it out in the press. That was mishandled completely. You know, look at the Scarlett Johansson thing. Couldn't that have been headed off at the pass? Especially because I think Iger was head of creative at that point, right? Or at least was helping in that way. So why wasn't that handled the way it maybe should have, even though Iger was still there for that whole thing? It's just really bizarre how this whole thing has kind of played itself out. And I do think the additional scrutiny, the additional, you know, the hit pieces that we're seeing from the press all the time now on Chapek, the criticism that seems to be non-existent over at Comcast, but it's in spades at Disney. I think that's all coming from a source, and I just don't think Iger can give it up. I think Iger's like, no, Disney, this media company will be successful because of my philosophy, not the others. It's interesting because this is very much, you know, the inflexibility thing you talked about earlier, OG.
Right.
You know who I heard was also very inflexible in their beliefs and core kind of philosophy and belief structure?
Who?
Barack Obama.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes, it is interesting, right? And we know that Bob Iger and Barack Obama are very much, they got ties there. Apparently, Bob Iger even went to him for advice about, hey, how do you handle retirement? How do you handle, kind of your one of your biggest roles of your life? How do you handle that post, right? And apparently, Barack Obama gave him advice. But it's quite interesting how, maybe it was more than mutual friendship. Maybe it was Iger was kind of falling into those same traps, so to speak. And at least with Iger, he may have recognized that and kind of said, oh, you know what, maybe I have to go off. But I think he's still kind of rigid in that. I think he's still kind of like, how do I influence this? How do I, how do I, if by hook or by crook, how do I force Chapek or Disney to go in the direction that I want?
Yeah, no, it's rough, man. And I was really, and this is the thing, I'll be completely candid right now. I really resisted the idea for a long time that Bob Iger would do this. And it really came from a place of like, because I really do respect Bob Iger. I like Bob Iger, and I really do think he was a great CEO for the most part. Like, the guy made mistakes, understandable.
Oh wait,
but
hang
for
on.
the most part,
God, I sound like a Bob Iger dick rider.
There you go.
Exactly. Exactly. But like, I really do feel like he did a lot of great things for the Walt Disney Company. And for a long time, I was like, okay. And I've seen him interviewed. I really felt like it came from this place of like, he really does, whether you agree or disagree with his approach or what he did with the IP and all that, I really do believe, or I did believe, that he was doing this in a place of like the betterment of the company, right?
Right.
But it was hard for me to really kind of like juxtapose like this idea that he would like, oh, well, he would purposely sabotage Chapek, which would hurt the company just for his own legacy. I really had a hard time coming to terms with that for a long time, because I'm like, well, no, come on. Iger loves Disney. Like, he would never do that. He wants the company to succeed. I got to say, guys, folks at home, my mindset on that is changing. And again, this is my opinion, but like, I'm starting to get the impression this was more about Bob Iger than it is about Disney. And he cared about Disney because Bob Iger was attached to Disney, and it's like, look, if you love the Walt Disney Company, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I'll be real with you. I love this company. If I'm the CEO of this company for 15 years, like Bob Iger is, and I end up leaving and I pick a successor, I'm not going to sit there and like try to sabotage or like leak things and try to hurt that successor, because I understand hurting the successor hurts the company. It's like the pilot of your plane. Like, if the pilot doesn't do well, your whole your whole plane.
The plane, yeah.
Right. Yeah. Like, so why would he do, like, if you really love the company, I find it hard to believe that you would try to sabotage Chapek, because Chapek right now is running the company. You're sabotaging the thing that you proclaim to love. And I'm going to bring Alia back on.
Sure.
Hey, it was maintenance.
So, Alia, welcome back. We were kind of saying that, like, in terms of like the sabotage aspect, I was kind of bringing up the point that, like, I really, it took a long time for me to come to terms with the sabotage thing in regards to Bob Iger, because I really do believe, or did believe, he really cared about the Walt Disney Company. And this whole notion of like, well, I'm going to throw Chapek under the bus runs kind of contrary to like this idea that he cares about the company. Because if you care about the company, you're gonna actually like try to help Chapek. Like, you don't want, like, Chapek's failure basically means failure for the company, right? It's not just like Chapek, it affects the Walt Disney Company as a whole. What do you think about that? Like, are you like, what's your mindset with this? Like, do you feel like if Iger really is behind this whole movement to kind of screw over Chapek, is it sort of coming from a place of like selfishness, like Iger's legacy, me? Or do you think he's really coming from a place of like, hey, look, sometimes there's going to be collateral damage, and I'm just trying to help the company in any way that I can, and this is how I'm going to do it? Like, where you kind of stand on that?
It's a tough one to analyze.
Hey, we bring the hard-hitting questions here in OG55.
It's like talking about your like parents in a way. It's like it's tough.
Chapek and Iger are my parents. No, I'm just kidding. You see the resemblance? I'm just kidding.
Yeah, good genes.
But it's because it hurts his legacy if it's sabotage. To me, if it was for the benefit of the company, and even, I was wrong, you're not the guy for this, Chapek, he would be public about it. It would almost be like the whole replace Eisner campaign, when that was very public. That was very known what Roy Disney was, but what Roy was did. Which middle initial was it? I always mess those up between it.
It was Roy O. Disney. Okay, Roy P. Disney was the dad.
Okay. Yeah, I was right. I should trust my instinct. But what Roy Disney led, etc., that was very public. So if he's concerned about the company, and even in a way concerned, this isn't for you, Chapek, he would be very public about it. The fact that we suspect him, trade suspect him, everybody seems to suspect he's behind it. It's a very selfish, egotistical thing. It's just that the sad irony is that if he's successful, it's going to harm his legacy too. And I'm really shocked he doesn't realize that.
I don't understand that, Alia. I don't understand that. Like it's been pretty well documented in a lot of different trades that Chapek was Iger's choice. And not only like for the CEO, but Chapek worked his way up because of Bob Iger. Like we talked about it earlier on in the show, where it's like he got promoted multiple times because of Bob Iger. I was at D23 Expo in 2019. I saw these two men and their families interacting, and they were very close. I mean, I was 20 feet from them, and the families were talking and laughing, and like it was all like funny. Like they were cool. Like you could tell they were really, really close. So it's like you did this. Like you put him in this position, and now you're like trying to sabotage. I still see comments here and there, I guess conspiracies that Chapek was forced on Iger, wasn't Iger's choice, but Iger was chairman of the board. So if he wasn't chairman, maybe I would kind of buy those conspiracies or those theories, but he was chairman of the board. So he
chose him.
But he was the king of the kingdom. I mean, what he says goes. So
like, and Ollie, you bring up a great point. It's like the board worshipped Bob Iger, okay? And it's like all of a sudden they would just out of the blue just have this big mutiny to vote against Bob Iger. Like, come on. There's no way. If Bob Iger didn't want Chapek, he wouldn't have got the job.
This is very John Lennon, Paul McCartney. Because there was.
Yeah, here we go.
Bob Iger is a huge Beatles fan, and he got to get back on Disney Plus. But Paul McCartney, John Lennon were best of friends. So it's almost they become so close. It's like a quasi marriage. And then when things don't work out, it's like an ugly divorce. And it's almost like, because you said you were observing them, they were friends, the family were friends, and now apparently it's very ugly. They don't talk to each other. It's almost like that level of John Lennon and Paul McCartney friendship and breakup, you could say.
No, it is, and it has really big implications.
We're still friends, right?
Depends on how hard you hit me.
There he goes, right? I think it has huge implications for the entire company and its trajectory and so forth, and the fact that this is such a it's such a public fight, and
it's awkward.
they yeah, it's awkward, and the undermining of Chapek. That's why I kind of feel bad for Chapek just a little way, because it just seems like he's never gotten a fair shake at any of this. He's had to deal with so much stuff in the last 2 years. I mean, and he's never gotten to the point where the company is kind of stable, so to speak, and kind of give it a chance to kind of implement the changes that he wants and kind of see his kind of change and influence shake out. He's just never had that opportunity, and it's quite kind of almost heartbreaking in a way, because it's like I
can kind of see too why Iger's announcement to come back, that I'm coming back to help out. I mean, if they were I mean, I really wish I observed that too, about how they were like friends and close and interacting. And I can picture it that there was what you're saying, OG, that there was a close friendship. I think that's why it shocked Chapek that it's like, why didn't you call me or email me that you're coming back? Or maybe last he talked to Bob Iger, it was just, maybe I'll come back. And then he's announcing it now in a paper, I'm coming back. So I could see, I mean, his reaction, there is responsibility on Chapek. He should have been mature with his reaction. They should have, I mean, they're Titans. They need to be mature and work it out. But I can see why that was shocking and hurtful to him too. So
yeah. No, 100%. People can think what they want about Chapek, but that was the beginning of the undermining of Bob Chapek, right? And it's Chapek was and we even talked about this a long time ago, Dre. When that happened, how we were joking even around about how who's really running this company. Chapek was announced as CEO, and here comes Daddy Iger and kind of helping out. It optically looked bad for Chapek, and I can see why. Especially just a month into the job or a couple months into the job, and he's already being undermined. I can see why he'd be mad. I can see why that would set him off and be like, hey, Iger, come on, man. All you had to do was talk to me. We could have made a joint statement or
press
something.
Conference or
Yeah, it undermined him. And it really did set the whole, especially the reputation that Chapek had with the Parks fans. He was already on shaky ground to begin with because the Park fans fucking hated him. And they still
still do.
Hated him.
They hate him so much.
Loathe this man, and then the fact that Iger would come in and be like, "Yeah, I'm going to help him out," he can't, he doesn't know what he's doing. It only added fuel to that fire, and it made it worse. Chapek should have been. I mean, Bob Iger. Look, Bob Iger is not a dumb guy. Okay,
that's why I was shocked though that Bob Iger being so about the fans and feeling connected, and that's why I also don't understand why the Park fans have such nostalgia for him. Is that if he was so in touch with what they felt, why did he promote Chapek to heads of parks and consumer products and then CEO? I mean,
Alia, that's the $1 billion question, and I'll even take it a step further because the anointed one, the perfect. The perfect guy that we all call Josh D'Amaro.
Oh yes, Josh D'Amaro.
Josh D'Amaro, who Park fans love because you know what? He said hi to me that one time when I was in Avengers Campus, and he rolls up his sleeves and he's super good looking and he's got a great smile. That guy. Well, if you really don't like Chapek, keep in mind that one of Chapek's first decisions as CEO was promoting Daddy Josh
to that job that he had.
Yes. Right? So Mr. Chapek, who you hate and loathe and has every bad instinct in the world and is a terrible leader, decided that your guy, Daddy Josh, is the right guy to head the parks. Well, look, I'm not saying that Josh is a bad guy or saying he's a bad leader. I don't really know. But if you don't like Chapek and his decision-making process, well, you should definitely look at the fact that Josh was the first thing he did when he was CEO. I think that says a lot. Okay,
please them and say, hey, I know you don't like me too much, but hey, I heard you like this guy. And here you go. It's like an olive branch.
And saying something interesting, like you guys said too with Bob Iger. It's like, well, you love Bob Iger. You think he has great instincts and great decision-making skills, and he's a great leader. But yet he was the guy who promoted your Chapek, who you hate. So it's like there's a big disconnect.
Well, the bigger disconnect is they blame Chapek for everything that the parks, seemingly do, even though Josh D'Amaro's in charge. So it's like, how does that whole thing work? Like, I know
you too have made those points to on tweeting and on streams, just this disconnect.
How do you like? This is the thing, and this is the one thing. Like, I don't care what opinion anyone has. Mm-hmm. On this channel, we welcome all opinions. Dre and I disagree on a lot, and that's cool. I love that. But like the thing with just be consistent, and that's the thing with the fandom is like, okay, if you're gonna have this notion right now, the buck stops here. Chapek is the guy; he's the CEO. Everything to blame with the parks and everything else down is his fault. But well, okay, that's good and that's great, and I respect that. But why wasn't it the buck stops here when Bob Iger was the CEO? How come Chapek still got all the shit when he was running the parks division?
Yeah.
He was running the parks. He got all the blame for it. And Bob Iger, it was never the buck stops here with Bob Iger. It was the parks guy, Chapek. Then Chapek is promoted to CEO, and now it's the buck stops here, and it's the CEO's fault. What?
Yeah, that's the big question. Even though we know that Iger was influential in the parks, he never seems to get any of the criticism. He never seems to get, I mean, some decisions, obviously, a lot of them are going to be, in the purview of who's ever in the parks division in the first place. But some decisions, they do emanate from C-suite, and it's, it's like, hey, at least be consistent in these matters. And honestly, these things are done by teams of people. We kind of put the blame on, one person or another. But hey, some of these are by committee. Some of these things have kind of outstanding histories with a lot of nuance to them. It's quite fascinating, quite interesting. It's interesting. Showcase of Wishes, our buddy online. Apparently he was at the forefront of all this. Hating on Iger back when the parks were under him, so to speak, and didn't agree with his decisions. And hey, you know what? That is somebody who's been consistent. He always hates on the CEO. So there you go. I mean,
you know what? And that's 100%. And I'm
consistency.
Yeah.
Consistency. And that's the one thing, like, and Dre, we're really good friends with Showcase. I love that. I love Showcase. I mean, I respect him and you're right. He's always had that like consistency, right? Like it's not, he doesn't have that selectiveness. He was blaming Iger back then. Now he's blaming Chapek. And you know what? That's great. Consistency. That's all it is consistency, Yeah. And I love that about him. And I respect that about him. And a lot of fans that it's too much about the personality and the charisma. I've talked to a lot of fans, including people, I'm not going to name names, but including people in my own life, like close, like family. I'll ask them, like, well, what don't you like about Chapek? Well, and I always hear stuff like, well, I don't know. He's just not charisma. He doesn't have the charisma that Bob Iger had. And he just doesn't have like, that like that. I'm like, okay, I don't like, but who cares? I don't care how the guy talks. What's his ideas? That's what I care about. And a lot of fans are like that. It always comes down to like a personality contest. And that's why you see this sort of like
Daddy Josh
contradiction, right? Yeah. With like DeMauro and Chapek and how because it's about, DeMauro, he's a good looking guy and he's got charisma and I like him. So he can't be to blame for the lightning lane because I mean, come on. He said hi to me that one time in Avengers Campus. Like,
well, yeah. Well, no, some people, they complain all the time about what the direction of the parks, what decisions they're making and stuff like that. And then they wear the Josh DiMauro t-shirts. And it's like, what? Like, what is this, dude? Like, what? How? And it's like, well, he's a good looking guy. And it's like, what? I mean, Paul Presser wasn't a bad looking guy either, but hey, I can tell you, like, he was not the best fit for the Parks division. Okay. It's crazy how all these other factors come into play, and it's just like, I think that's why Chapek threw his bat in with Wall Street. Cause it's like, they don't care. They just look on return on investment. They're looking for their return, dividends and so forth. I mean, that's what they care about, right? So I'm just going to throw my lot in with them because, they can kind of see through all of this. Whereas historically, the parks have always been kind of run by a studio guy who's always kind of had that studio swagger, so to speak. And I guess that's what people expect. And it's like, it's almost tribalistic in a way. And it's kind of this, irrational thing. And I'm not.
And then there's people who've crossed paths with Chapek, I guess around Christmas time, especially. He was at Disneyland and they had positive news about it. And everybody just was like, oh. Whereas then, yes, you hear these accounts about DeMauro and it's just.
Isn't that weird? It's bizarre.
It is weird. It is really weird how like the how that comes into play, and the looks.
It's very disappointing, very shallow. It's just
It is. It really is.
Speaking of who likes who, I had heard, this is the one question I wanted to ask you, Alia.
Sure.
Maybe you have some insight on it. I have heard that Susan Arnold was not a big Iger fan, but she's a big Chapek fan. Is that consistent with what you've heard, or have you heard anything about this?
I think I've crossed paths with that or read that somewhere, but it hasn't been anything at the level of baloney or anything like that. But the way that he writes is that she is, I don't think she's neutral about Chapek. I think she, yes, wants him to succeed, but if she has to make a difficult decision, she will, though, too.
Interesting.
Okay.
But yeah, when she was, part of me wonders, though, yes, it was, especially the way Iger's acting now. I don't think he was happy with the news when she was named chair of the board.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he feels that he wouldn't be doing this if he felt that he had an ally as chair on the board. Someone who saw things the way that he did.
That's interesting. Yeah, I feel you're right, Alia. That's a great point you bring up. Like, because this is definitely coming from a place of like insecurity. Like you're right. Like if Iger felt like, okay, like I can make a phone call and get this guy out of here.
Arnold thinks like me. I'm in connection with her, you know.
Yeah, it'd be different. And I feel like he's kind of like backed into a corner now. He feels like that because like now he feels like, well, he doesn't have like the chairman of the board is someone he doesn't feel is maybe particularly friendly in his direction. He feels like there's no other way to affect change than to do it this way through like the trades and the leaks, you know, because look, fact is, if he felt like he could make a phone call and and get Chapek out of there, you think he would just do that. Like, why go through all these hoops with the media if you can just, I mean, come on, you know, you're Iger, make the call.
I
you know?
think maybe he does regret he didn't do that decision when he was chair to get something happening with Chapek, and he's like kicking himself or something. I mean, that's the only other explanation.
Well, look at the attacks on Chapek. They're very much, if this were to have happened to Bob Iger, he'd be kind of devastated. And I think that's what kind of gives me a clue into maybe this is coming from Iger, because he's being hit like as if, you know, Iger himself would take those criticisms to heart, and maybe that doesn't quite hit the same way that it would with Chapek, and that's why I kind of think like, what would I not want done to me? Okay, I'm going to hit him this way, and that's where you see a lot of these these attacks directed towards. It's you know, it's in the press, it's in the media, it's in La La Land and all this kind of stuff, right? And it's like Chapek doesn't quite operate on that level, even though he, like, when it gets to a fever pitch, like, he will change course, I suppose. But maybe that's not the effective way to approach it.
I don't think he cares till he's asked, until he's cornered and asked directly. And it does make you wonder with the timing of the annual meeting, how there's the, unfortunately, eclipse of the two. If that didn't happen, I do wonder if they would have been silent or just would have kept with that statement, because he knew he was going to be asked about it, if not by a caller, by an investor. So
I've told people multiple times, like, if that bill and that passing happens 2 weeks after the shareholders meeting, I don't think they say anything about it. But because it happened almost on the eve of it, of course Chapek was going to be put in a position where he had to answer it, and he answered for it loudly, maybe a little bit too loudly, and that's going to get you into trouble.
Because you gave that example with the ScarJo. He didn't.
Yes.
He was on his footing. He was on his path. He didn't care what was being said in the press until he was cornered at some function, and he was just really annoyed. He was asked about it, and he pretty much got on the phone and said, "Settle with her. Let's get this done. I don't want to be
settle it out. Let's make this work."
So
fascinating. I think look, and I might get a lot of heat for this. But I think that, like, deep down in his core, I think Chapek has really good business instincts. I do. I think he understands business. I think
that's why Wall Street is still on his side and believes in him.
Yes.
So.
Right. And that's why Bob Iger promoted him 3 times. And, you know, like, I think he has what it takes. Chapek just needs to kind of harness that and sort of, like, also like trust his instincts, his own instincts, and like stand his ground a little bit. Like it's okay to like kind of like adjust a little bit when you're wrong or whatever. I'm not saying like dig your heels in no matter what, but I think that Chapek needs to be a little more trusting in his instincts and like sort of like, no, I'm the CEO. Okay, I'm the CEO, and this is my decision, and this is what we're gonna do. Like, stand by your decision a little bit, and stop being so reactive all the damn time. You know.
Well, if you change your mind, it needs to be more gradual or feel like more transitional versus whiplash.
Whiplash, exactly. Whereas, you know, that's what people said. People were saying like, hey, you know, these creators kind of felt like it was like a substitute teacher almost, and they felt that they had this kind of power over him. It's like, oh, let's lean into him a little bit more because they felt that he was flexing towards the direction. It's like, okay, that's not going to work long term here. You really have to, if you believe in something strongly, you really have to stand firm with that, even if it might be the wrong call. And yes, like you said, Alia, you can transition those things slowly if those things aren't working. But man, oh man, when you have these huge swings and stuff, and I gotta be honest, I don't even know where the company's going right now. Like it could be a different direction tomorrow. I have no idea, and that's part of the problem too.
And Dre, to your point, in just a matter of weeks, you want to talk about slow transitioning and all that, right?
Yeah.
To your point.
Yeah.
Chapek, within a matter of weeks, not even months, weeks, went from we're going to be politically neutral to we don't like the bill and we're going to work to repealing it. Okay. Within just a matter of weeks. I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, regardless what you think about the bill or whatever, like you can't. Come on, you can't be a flip floppy like this and just change course like drastically, and like you have to have some sort of like stand for what your instincts are and kind of dig in a little bit.
Yeah.
And he doesn't dig in at all. It's like, oh well, everyone wants me to do this. I'll do that then.
I mean, if this kryptonite is being cornered and asked about something, that he needs to just look at his calendar. Am I going to have any meetings with journalists or anything with the people in the near future? I will. Okay. That's going to bother me. Okay. Maybe then this is my opinion, but if he's, it's just, he needs to like understand himself more, I think.
Yeah. And look, if we want to bring a little bit of like analogy here in terms of like, cause I think you can kind of make a case in terms of politics too. Like, I'll be real with you. In 2016, I absolutely loved Bernie Sanders. I was a Bernie bro. Okay, I was a Bernie bro. In 2016, I was a Bernie bro. And the thing I liked about Bernie is that Bernie stuck to what he believed in, right? Like, he didn't care if he was getting attacked on all ends. That's what he was going to stick with, right? And that was a big reason why I didn't like, again, full disclosure, and I'm probably going to get a lot of heat for this, but I just haven't.
Hillary Clinton enters the chat.
There we go. Hillary Clinton enters the chat. That's why I didn't like Hillary Clinton, because she was the opposite of Bernie. She was like kind of like, where are the political winds blowing today?
Kind of like
and then she would go wherever the popular thing was, right? That doesn't ever resonate with people. Like, you have to, people would rather you, and I deal with this on my channel all the time. People like, you would rather watch somebody as a content creator that takes a stand on something and you disagree with them than someone that just changes their opinion willy-nilly based on like what the popular thing is. Chapek needs to learn from both Hillary Clinton and even just content creators, in that you have to, even if people disagree with you, you have to kind of stand your ground and like stand in what you believe in and what you think is right, you know, and it's okay to kind of like alter that and kind of adjust, but like you can't go drastic. You can't just have your whole compass based on what everyone else thinks, and people don't respect you that way, and it just doesn't lead. You end up pleasing nobody. Hillary Clinton learned that the hard way, you know, and you just got to stick a little bit to what you believe in. A little bit, Chapek, come on. Yeah. So I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at with it. I think he just needs to, you know, he's got the instincts. Stick with them. Do the slow transitions, but just don't go too overboard with kind of appeasing everybody, because you're going to end up pleasing nobody.
There's a great quote on that, by the way, from Captain America of all places, that I really like, and it's included somewhat in Civil War, but I do like it. It's doesn't matter what the press says, doesn't matter what the politicians or the mobs say, doesn't matter if the whole country decides that something wrong is right, is something right. This nation was founded on one principle above all else: the requirement that we stand up for what we believe, no matter the odds or the consequences. When the mob and the press and the whole world tell you to move, your job is to plant yourself like a tree next to the river of truth and tell the whole world, no, you move, right? And that, I think that's a very powerful statement. It's a powerful for a reason, because it's like, even if you're wrong, you kind of have to stand firm. And unfortunately, with Chapek being so wishy-washy, especially in public settings, apparently, you can't do that. Strength is exuded in multiple ways, and I think that's one of them, right? So, yeah, they want a leader, they want direction.
No, 100%. And like, you're right, strength comes in multiple ways, and it really comes down to being a leader. I mean, that's being a leader. It is saying, hey, no, this is I'm the CEO. I'm gonna guide the ship. Comes down to being a good leader, and
trust his instincts and beliefs. And if he can't do that, then he needs to be fair and resign. Or I hope Arnold and the board will spot that and remove him, because yes, you need to believe in yourself, believe in your decisions as CEO.
I know we're kind of on the path of maybe wrapping this video up, but there's one more topic that I really want to get into, and I really want to ask you. So if we can, maybe like 10 minutes or something real fast.
Absolutely.
The trades are reporting that maybe the conversations are being had right now or discussed, that maybe Chapek isn't the guy, and maybe they want to go another direction. And the two names that keep popping up over and over again is Peter Rice and Tom Staggs. And I want to just kind of ask you guys, what do you think about all this? And if you were going to select someone, who would it be, or who would you prefer? I think this is a very kind of interesting conversation, and one that's being talked about a lot.
Well, let's bring up, this is from, shout out to Matthew Baloney, from Puck News, who we are all huge fans of, and I will link his site down below. You can subscribe to him. He does a lot of great stuff. He's a Hollywood insider. Really, really fascinating stuff that he releases. But this was in an email he dropped, I think like just a few days ago, actually. And I'll read it real quick, and then we'll kind of talk about this, because it's definitely tied to what you were saying, Dre. So it says here, the Peter Rice calculus seems to have changed lately. The Disney TV chief had been rumored to be interested in the number 2 job under David Zaslav at the merged Warner Brothers Discovery. But with Chapek on the ropes at Disney, he may want to stick around and vie for the number 1 job if or when it becomes available. Of course, Rice has told his friends he's happy where he is at Disney, no plans to leave. That guy holds his cards very closely to his embroidered Mickey vest. I'll start with you, Alia. I mean, I know you're subscribed to Matt Baloney's newsletters and what have you, and you actually brought him to my attention, and he does drop a lot of great, interesting stuff. But what are your thoughts, like what Dre was saying, like in terms of Peter Rice, Tom Staggs, these kind of like alternatives if Chapek doesn't work out?
I think it's very promising, or it's a possibility. And because I like your theory about how Netflix does it with co-CEOs, that if Arnold and the board are feeling kind of, it's neutral, it's like this, but we're not quite ready to get rid of Chapek, or considering how he came on with the pandemic and all that, want to give him more of a chance, but still a little concerns with creative talent and things like that, then I wouldn't be surprised if Peter Rice's co-CEO becomes like a co-CEO. But if he completely leaves, then the CEO.
Yeah, and Disney has a history of really like that push and pull, yin and yang kind of approach to management works really well for Disney. We've seen it like with Walt and Roy. Like these two men, Walt and Roy, were completely different people. Walt was this like pie in the sky dreamer, I'll bankrupt the company to get my vision made, the kind of guy. And Roy was much more pragmatic, much more financial, much more, hey, Walt, simmer down a little bit, like this might cost a little too much. But those two entities worked really well together. They kind of balanced each other out. Even Walt Disney talked about that many times, about how Walt and Roy had this relationship, and it did kind of balance everything out. We saw it even recently, semi-recently, with like Michael Eisner, Frank Wells, that relationship, and how well Disney did under that. I think there's a case to be made for that kind of dual leadership role, like Alia said, maybe a co-CEO Netflix structure, or even just bring back the Disney president position, which Bob Iger got rid of, by the way. And that would sort of bring a little more checks and balances to the equation, especially with Susan Arnold in the mix, with chairman of the board. So I would love to see like Peter Rice. I'm personally, I would love to see Peter Rice as CEO. I think we need a studio guy or gal in that position. But I think that if the CEO thing isn't in the cards, I would like to see him be the president of the Walt Disney Company or some sort of co-CEO, like Ali was saying. I think it'd be phenomenal. What do you think, Dre?
No, I can see your point. Yeah, Walt and Roy, obviously, that the yin and yang. You're completely right. Happened again with Michael Eisner and Frank Wells. Michael Eisner was a little bit more, I don't know, fiscally conservative, whereas Frank Wells really did want to put them out there and take some shots, And when Frank Wells died, that whole dynamic changed pretty spectacularly, for better or for worse. And so now, I mean, this is kind of what I was hearing about the Susan Arnold selection. It was like, instead of making Bob Chapek, chairman and CEO, having kind of this dual role with Susan Arnold kind of balancing it out. From what I was hearing, the board kind of felt that Disney Company is so broad, it's so big, it's so just, you have so many different industries, you have so many different things that they do now, that maybe it should be kind of a dual role in that way. And yeah, I kind of do agree. Like if you get rid of Chapek, the stock's going to drop, and that's going to add a lot more volatility to the situation. That's already been very, very volatile. Whereas if you kind of have like a president role, just kind of balancing it out a little bit, whether that be Tom Staggs or Peter Rice or whatever, maybe that's the kind of the key there. And maybe Bob Chapek can still make his business decisions while you have this kind of other person who maybe can sell those things a little bit better than Chapek can, whether that be a new product or making cuts or remaking the company in a structure that he of his choosing, that kind of thing. So I do kind of see the value in that a lot, actually.
No, 100%, and it actually makes it. And again, this is under the assumption, because we don't know for sure. But if Iger and his loyalists are really trying to, sabotage Chapek, if you have someone in there that's kind of like a close number two, like a Peter Rice, it sort of makes that whole thing with Iger a little more complicated, because Iger now has to be careful, because now you're not just going after Chapek, you're going after Peter Rice, who might be a friend. He might be someone he agrees with politically. It might be someone he... You know what I'm saying? So now it's like, well, now you're not just taking pot shots at Chapek. You're kind of doing it towards Peter Rice as well. And that might kind of diffuse that situation a little bit, So I don't know.
Do you know why Iger got rid of the president position?
I don't know why. Do you know why? I know he got rid of it, and he... Look, Iger, and this is the thing with Bob Iger, is he
more
made
leadership,
a lot of moves.
more so leadership, I bet.
Ego. I don't know.
Oh yeah, where did you get that?
He got rid of the president role, and then he also inserted himself as chairman of the board while he was CEO. There was a lot of moves made where he was really the guy, like making all of this. Like really, like that's it. Like the literally, you want to talk about the buck stops here? When it was Bob Iger, that really was the case. He was the CEO and the chairman of the board. Yep. And there was no president.
And his thoughts and opinions extended to not just acquisitions, but also like little stuff like World of Color. Apparently he had some opinions about that and how that whole thing went together and was, how that went through and stuff like that. So we saw his influence in a lot of different areas. I know Michael Eisner, he kind of, the whole falling out with Jeffrey Katzenberg thing, like he didn't feel that Jeffrey Katzenberg was ready for that position. He leaves, starts DreamWorks and all that. We might be seeing a version of that, which on Lesser and Skydance, so that's going to be really, really interesting to see how that whole thing turns out. But that's besides the point. It's interesting. I have to look into why maybe Iger got rid of that position, and maybe it was ego. Maybe he did want to be the guy. He did want to be the face of, hey, this newfound success that Disney has had and has become this kind of conglomerate and an entity and this highly thought of company. That was because of me and me alone. Maybe that's the reason why. I don't know. That's a very interesting question.
I will say this before we close it out.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. A lot of fans, like we talked about earlier in the discussion, they get caught up in like looks and optics and what have you. Like they kind of favor Daddy Josh because he's good looking and what have you. The charisma thing is definitely a factor in all of this. And I'm just gonna say, like, I am so above that. And I think that 70s Wanda should be the next CEO.
You know what? She has the absolute qualifications. No, she is. I think she would work very, very well in that role, right. And I think she would be highly successful. So, no, you know what?
I love the
I agree. Alton's awesome, man. She's great.
It had nothing to do with how she looks or anything like that.
No.
70
looks, no factor. Looks, no factor.
Looks, no factor. Appearance, no factor. Her acting ability, no factor. I think she would make a great CEO for the Disney company. I do agree.
She's got the chops, absolutely. Oh, kidding aside.
She starts with the chaos magic.
Yeah, exactly.
Team
by the way,
Mitch.
Alia, are you excited for? Speaking of Wanda, are you excited for Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness?
I'm very excited, yet also nervous. Rupert Archie's the villain. I hope nothing happens to her, especially because the villains in Spider-Man, nothing happened to them. And oh my goodness, I'm nervous.
No, you're funny. No, I agree with you. I've been nervous too about the whole making Wanda the bad guy. From the trailers, it looks like it. I don't know. Maybe it won't be her. Maybe it'll be just like some multiverse version of Wanda they're going at. Hopefully that's the case because Wanda's a great Avenger. I love Wanda. I hope
that WandaVision was about her not being the crazy person and crazy with grief, and so I don't want that to take away from her. I want her to have agency. So I'm just excited but nervous. I'm just
yeah. No, I feel you on that. I'm nervous too because I love the character. She's phenomenal. I love her take on it.
I think they'll take a look. If you look at the comic books, some of these characters, they have falling outs and they become kind of villains or heroes of their own story. That's
cool
kind of at odds with others. Yeah. And so it's I think the characterization will do well. People have Thanos. A lot of people kind of watched Infinity War and said, "Oh, you know what? That guy, he's doing it for a reason," and I empathize with that reason. And even the Russo brothers had to say, "No, that's not cool." Like that. That is. No,
that's so funny.
He is wrong. Here's why.
Maybe he had a point, or because he's partly deviant, so he's going with his deviant, genes, but not only that, he delayed it.
The emergence. So it's I think they'll do it in a way where Scarlet Witch maybe feels that she is the hero of her own story, even though it might be at odds with everybody else. So I think they'll handle it quite well. We'll see.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, hey, look, Loki. Loki technically is a bad guy, a villain, or whatever, and they've made him into a very likable character.
Anti-hero.
Yeah, anti-hero, right? So there's ways to approach it where if she does go a little dark, that she's still Wanda, we still love her.
It's called Multiverse of Madness. Mom, she's looking for her children.
Right.
She's Mama Bear. And
we can add Disney CEO to that resume. Mom, perfect. Avenger, Disney CEO.
Absolutely perfect. There you go. I like this. I will second this motion.
And what's the third? Concur? I concur. Do we concur?
Perfect. Well, 3 votes. I think that's it.
Thank you both for coming on. It was an absolute pleasure. Alia, loved having you back on again.
Oh, you're welcome. Sorry if I was a little off.
It was really a great time. Ollie, if you could let everybody at home know where they can find you on social media.
Twitter, the bird, Elon Musk's baby now apparently. AliaaAloha.
Oh man, Alia, you know what? Hey, Dre, we got to do a show on that. We got to do an Orange Nerd on Twitter.
You think so? On the Elon Musk thing? Hey, you know what? That would be a really interesting one. That's a fascinating thing. That's I just think Elon Musk is such an interesting character.
And if Bob Iger is really up to something, he might be looking at that going, I must buy more stock in Disney.
I knew Alia couldn't go a whole show without blowing my mind. I knew it.
See, and hey, you want to know something else? Remember, Disney circled the tires on buying Twitter at one point. Oh, so what's gonna happen now? Yeah, exactly. What life could have been like if that had happened?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh, fascinating. We might have to circle back, as Jen Psaki says. We might have to circle back on this one.
I think we shall.
It is kind of entertainment related because Twitter is such a huge part of the whole sphere. You know, the whole thing. So.
Too much almost though. It's like something trended on Twitter and then you check Google trending and it didn't even make a dent. And then Twitter trending huge. And then you see really the big world or the real life world, no impact. So it's kind of like, I wish companies would chill with that. But you're right. Wow. It has an effect, good or bad.
A lot of financial interest at stake. Unfortunately, they can't afford to. So there you go.
Yeah. No, it would be a fascinating show. Maybe we'll dive into that. We'll see. But Dre, before we go, where can everybody find you?
We'll give the fans what they want. All right. You can find me at VashSky on Twitter, ironically enough. There you go. That's that. And if you want to see me, on OrangeGrove55, well, it's going to be on Freshly Squeezed, your source for juicy news and info squeezed fresh right from the Grove. So that is where you can find me.
But really nothing compares with a freshly squeezed.
There you go. I love it. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. And for those of you that at home, that was Adam the Woo. That was not Florida Governor DeSantis.
No, it was not Florida Governor DeSantis. Although if he does come out with a drop, I'll update.
There we go. Thank you so much for watching, everybody at home. Comment down below with what your thoughts are on Bob Chapek, the whole power struggle vacuum thing, Peter Rice, Tom Staggs, 70s Wanda. All your opinions on all of it. Comment down below. We'd love to hear from you.
New CEO. There you go.
Yes. And as always, have a wonderful, wonderful day.
Thank you very much.